just yeah, go ahead and start out.
Well, hi, I'm Scott Mendes. I'm a former world champion bull rider in the PRCA. In 1997, I was tremendously blessed of God to accomplish that feat, to win a world title. I started riding calves in California. My dad put me on a baby calf around 5-6 years old at a campfire and branding, and I rode a few jumps and fell off and thought, man, this is exciting. And so I actually loved the sport of rodeo. My grandfather in the early 1940s was a very tough bull rider, and he rode with Harry Tompkins and Jim Shoulders, and so rodeo was really in my family background. My dad competed. My younger brother rides bulls today. So just being a Mendes and being a bull rider, it just kind of seemed hand in hand. One thing I'd like to share about was on my mother's side of the family. My mother and father divorced at age 4 or 5, and she was from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. My dad was from the West Coast. And so I started junior rodeoing in California and did pretty well. Enjoyed learning how to rope and things of that nature and riding. But my dad eventually would move to Reno, Nevada. And I high school rodeoed 4 years in the state of Nevada. In high school, I won 2 state championships, went to the national high school finals 3 times. And just loved rodeo. And I had a chance to go to college. I went to college. I tell people I went one day. There was a rodeo coach in Susanville, California, and he invited me to come out and practice with him. And I went there and rode the bulls that they had on hand pretty easy, and roped a few steers, and just shook his hand and told him that I wanted to go to the national finals as quick as possible. But most of my testimony today is just discovering and looking back at my life. I was pretty insecure in who I was and trying to prove who I was in my performance in the arena. God would eventually straighten me out. My 3rd national finals in 1994, my very good friend and close friend from Austin, Texas, Brent Thurman, was killed. He was actually stepped on in the 10th go-around, and I was to ride 5 minutes later, and if I ride my bull that day, I would become a world champion. God's plans are always different. I was excited. I felt ready to win that championship. Had been there a couple times, paid my dues. However, watching my friend be killed just right before I had to ride for a world championship was devastating. It was a defining moment of my life. Up until that point, I had felt pretty invincible. I'd lived a pretty normal rodeo career. I rodeoed hard. When I won Cheyenne and big major rodeos, I would, party and go out and drink and just tried to be a good person. I knew just a little bit about the Lord on my mother's side to know that if I wasn't just doing really, really wrong, that God had a little bit of grace. But sometimes you can think you're right and you're really, really wrong. But that day when Brent was killed and I was to ride for a world championship, I bucked off a bull I rode 3 weeks later for 94 points and won $14,000 on. So it wasn't the setting that day as it was more of God's calling on my life. So when Brent passed away that day, I realized I wasn't very as invincible as I thought I was. And so that day I walked out as a runner-up to a world championship. I went to Austin, Texas. I never spoke to anybody, more than 3 people in a room, without getting really red-faced. I had no idea that God could use me that way. But right after that, I met my wife, and at Brent's funeral, I actually met her that week that we were in town for the funeral, and my life totally changed. I've been married 18 years. I've got 3 beautiful children that love the Western lifestyle. God's got His hand on their life. They're going to do great things. But my wife and I made a decision that if we were going to get married, that we would do it the right way and that God would lead our life. So I told Larry Mahan this afternoon in an interview that from 1994 being a runner-up until 1997 when I became the world champion, those 3 years were the most defining years of my life. I went back to the finals in 96, didn't do very well. 97, my son was born 6 weeks before the NFR, and I just had extra help that year, and I was able to win a world championship, win the average, win the world. But ever since then, my call has really been, I know in my heart that I'm to work with youth. We do training camps across the nation. We also have formulated a Christian bull riding league called Conquering the Beast, where we have entertainment, Christian artists, the power team, guys that come out and break bats and rip phone books. And we just really evangelize in the community and try to help young people to know who they are and to conquer the beast in their own life while we're actually doing it in the arena. So it's an exciting ministry. I had some schooling in ministry. I worked for a big ministry in Fort Worth, and just really began to understand things like stewardship and accountability and what God expected out of me and what God thought about my life, rather than staying trapped in my own limitations. And so I began to renew my mind to God's Word, and ever since then, incredible things have happened in my life. Today, working with Western Wishes, we're working on motion pictures, having several appearances on Christian television. I can just look back now and say that if you will truly trust God with your heart and give Him the gifts and the talents that He's blessed you with, your life will never be the same. And I hope to take this message with Western Wishes and our ministry, Western Harvest, and Chris Cox, and maybe the ranchers that are watching this video, wherever this may be seen, and encourage you that with man it's impossible, but with God all things are possible. So I encourage you today to discover who God says you are, and to do everything you can to live through faith and love and draw from His strength, and it'll work out for you. God bless.